Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Coming up on the programme this week,
whether you're in the sort of early stages of just kind of wondering how things are going to go, reach out, we can help. Or if you feel that you're in the thick of it and you're on that more severe end of the spectrum, again, reach out for help because there's things that we can do.
So well into next year, perhaps people will still have, for instance, fears about coronavirus. They'll still be impacted maybe by what they've experienced this year, whereas some people might be happy to just move on with their lives, but we'll all do it on a slightly different timescale, won't we?
And one of the things that we've done is looked at our data from this period, so post-COVID this year, from March to where we are today, to the same period last year. And in terms of those issues specifically relating to school and college, we've seen an increase of well over 200%.
And I'll be reminding you how you can make connections with mental health organisations within your community. It's Mental Health Monday.
Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
Tackling the stigma.
Hey everyone, thanks for downloading the podcast. As ever, appreciating your support. My name's Mick Coyle. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. So we're on to part 2 of our conversation with the team from Kooth.com. Our guest on the programme this week, Lynne Green. Lynne is the Chief Clinical Officer for Xenzone, and she's a consultant clinical psychologist. She's an expert in all matters. And like Hannah last week, she's been following the trends that people have been seeing through coronavirus and COVID-19, through lockdown, and some of the issues that are really starting to come to the fore that are unrelated to the physical effects of coronavirus, but are very much part of the issues that we're seeing. Just nationally this week, we heard about the figures that there's been an increase in the number of people who are now suffering or living with depression, up to around 1 in 5 of the population, up from about 1 in 10. So it's a really significant impact that lockdown appears to have had on us here. But as we're about to hear from Lynne, there's lots going on. And as we said with Hannah last week, it's not just about the physical effects of what's going on around us, it's also about the mental health effects as well. This conversation with Lynne Green I recorded last week, and we started off by talking about those physical versus mental issues which have emerged in the last few months.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that. There's been lots of focus on the physical health, and I'm pleased to see some focus on the mental health issues as well. But certainly from my perspective in the service that I've worked for, we've seen a huge increase in young people in particular presenting with increased concerns about their mental health and well-being, which is not surprising given these unprecedented times that we find ourselves in. And I guess the lack of control that people are feeling right now, which has a huge impact on mental health and well-being.
So in terms of the things that you've found, the trends that you've started to follow through Kooth, what are those sort of emotional issues that are on the rise? What have you spotted? What have you seen?
Well, I guess you would imagine at this time of year that you would see an increase in concerns related to school and college, for example. And one of the things that we've done is looked at our data from this period, so post-COVID this year, from March to where we are today, to the same period last year. And in terms of those issues specifically relating to school and college, we've seen an increase of well over 200%. Which is pretty worrying. In terms of specifics, we've seen a real increase in anxiety and stress. So roughly 40% of young people are presenting with some kind of anxiety-related issue, and that's actually slightly higher for those students who are exam age. We've seen a real increase in anger, particularly prevalent for boys, interestingly. We've seen issues around depression, low self-worth, lack of motivation, and interestingly, that's been more prevalent in girls. So that's increased by almost 100% actually. And one of the things that's really concerning me is an increase again of almost 100% around eating difficulties. And it's concerning because eating difficulties can very, very quickly move into an eating disorder. And of course, that's a really serious mental health disorder.
And when we talk about those who are of sort of exam age, you talked about the issues around the timings, the March to the exam period in both 2020, but also in 2019. Of course, there were no exams this year. Some people would suggest that would arguably make things easier. Why do you think there's still been an issue despite the fact that the exams haven't been there?
What we're hearing from the young people that we work with is a sense of I guess feeling trapped to some extent, and initially when lockdown happened, I think I was literally feeling trapped at home. But I think people tend to associate school with education, but of course, for our young people, it's much more than that. It's a social environment as well for many, and of course. For those at the more severe end of the spectrum, for those who are at risk, school is actually a place of safety. So I think the loss of the school or the college environment in that respect has been really, really difficult for people. I think people have been quite unmotivated and also very anxious about their future. I think lack of control is really, really significant here because let's face it, none of us know what the future is going to hold. So I think people have been anxious about, first of all, what exams am I going to get? What results am I going to get? How's the predicted grade system going to work? And then what's going to happen at the end of it? What are my chances of getting to college, to university? And when and if I get there, what are then my chances of getting a good job of my choice in the future? So I think that sense of lack of control is really creating a sense of fear and of lack of motivation for people.
Putting sort of exams to one side as we sort of go through the other side and we try and look forward and be positive about the future. Those sort of relationships which may have been strained through coronavirus will be as important as ever, I guess, moving forward as well. And I guess they play a crucial role in how we feel about ourselves based on our own surroundings and how our feelings are impacted by our surroundings and the people that we are closest with.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And again, our data has shown a real increase in concerns around relationships, both from our young people, but also from the perspective of the adults we work with as well. Relationships are absolutely crucial. And I think some people, again, coming back to this idea of feeling trapped, have felt really restricted in terms of the number of people that they can, liaise with, talk to, hang out with, which has been really difficult. So I think it's, first of all, really important that we have a kind of, one size doesn't fit all model, because one size absolutely doesn't fit all here. Certainly one of the things that I've been conscious of, and I'm a parent of three, that what works for one of my children might not work for the other two. So I think it's really important that we take the time to listen to one another, to allow space to talk, to find out what are the specific issues relating to individuals and within families as well. It's absolutely crucial. We can't assume that that one way is going to work. And I think if we do that, we're in danger of just making people feeling guilty, for not sort of doing the thing that's been recommended. So I think it's really important that we take an individual approach.
In terms of that, up 50% on normal levels, the relationships, reports of relationships being strained within families. Of course, we've had this really severe lockdown, which is starting to ease now. Should we be optimistic in regard to this particular trend in terms of how things might move forward?
I think we should be cautiously optimistic. I think optimism generally in terms of positive health and well-being is really important. But I think the assumption that when everything goes back to normal, everything will be okay is also a little bit risky. First of all, we don't know what normal is going to look like in the future. So I think that's really important. And I think we have to put some efforts into making sure that those family relationships work well, and that's going to mean taking some time to understand what those difficulties are, and also giving each other space to to work in their own way going forwards.
And in terms of that, making sure we've got healthy relationships that benefit everyone in our homes. There's empathy that's got to be in there, sympathy as well, and looking out for each other. Because as you said, there'll be a normal again. But what that normal looks like, well, none of us really know, do we?
No, you're right. None of us know what normal is going to look like in the future. I think we can glean a lot from some of the literature around resilience, and utilise that going forwards. And I can't emphasise enough the importance of talking about what's happened and how you're feeling. Now that's easier for some and not so easy for other people. So if that's difficult, it's really important to use other services, online services, for example, as a way of expressing yourself. Use support groups, discussion forums. The key message here really is to not bottle things up. And I think trying to find some positives from the situation. So, having a sense of reality, accepting that, this period has been really tricky. It's been pretty traumatic for most of us at some level or other, but to try and take some positives from the situation. In terms of our young people who maybe are struggling with not having got the exam grades that they predicted. I know many people who've been in that position over the years or haven't got into the university of their choice. It's really important that we keep the options open because, many people have bad things that happen and good things come from it. So let's try and be really positive. I think you're right in terms of looking out for each other, helping others. Certainly the power of altruism shouldn't be underestimated. And I don't think that necessarily means grand gestures. It can be really small things that help other people feel good, and that can help you to feel good as well, which is a really crucial factor in promoting positive mental health.
I think speaking more generally now, Lynne, is there an issue around the timing around this, that some people will think, oh, back to school in September, maybe it's back to work, everything's essentially gone back to normal. But actually, for a lot of people, it will take a long time for them to get to grips with what normal is and how normal will be for the future. So well into next year, perhaps people will still have, for instance, fears about coronavirus. They'll still be impacted maybe by what they've experienced this year, whereas some people might be happy to just move on with their lives, but we'll all do it on a slightly different timescale, won't we?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And that's what I mean about having a really individual approach, because everybody is going to react to this differently. Everybody's got a unique set of circumstances, and even within the same household, and siblings within the same household may react to the situation differently. There's often a delayed reaction to this kind of traumatic event. So we need to have processes in place that enable us to meet everybody's needs at whatever level they're at, whether that's preventative or whether it's in the moment support. The real clear message for me that I'd really like to get out there for people is that for anybody who is really struggling, please do not struggle in silence, because there are services out there, be them digital, face-to-face, NHS. We're here to help. And whether you're in the sort of early stages of just kind of wondering how things are going to go, reach out, we can help. Or if you feel that you're in the thick of it and you're on that more severe end of the spectrum, again, reach out for help, because there's things that we can do.
That wraps up our conversation with Lynne Green, Chief Clinical Officer with the Xenzone. She's a consultant clinical psychologist as well. Couth.com if you want to find out more information about the work that she does. Also, Dr. Hannah Wilson, who was a brilliant guest on last week's show. Hopefully, there was some decent insight in there for you as well. And that final message as well, if you want to get support, absolutely, it's out there. Now, thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday this week. There's a bank holiday next week, so there's going to be no podcast, but we'll be back in essentially 2 weeks' time. Also, if you want to get involved in the conversation, drop me an email. You can do mick.coyle@bowermedia.co.uk or tag me on Twitter at Mr. Mick Coyle. You'll also find me on Facebook. I am Mick Coyle there, MickCoyle. Exactly how you'd probably expect it to be spelt. What else can you do? Well, if you want to find mental health services close to you, we mentioned the team from Couth.com. They're up and about if that's relevant for you or maybe someone you know. hubofhope.co.uk is a website where you can go and find all the local mental health services close to you. The regular numbers are there as well. The Samaritans 116 123. You can text as well. Shout to 85258. That service is available. And I always say, and I say it every week, if there is an emergency and an emergency situation, the number is exactly the same, 999, the number you'd normally call if somebody's life is in danger. So I'll be back in 2 weeks with more Mental Health Monday. Thanks for checking out the show this week.